The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, demanded that the money of Russian businessman Abramovich be given for the purchase of air defense systems for Ukraine. Zelensky made this statement after shocking details emerged in the media about his contacts with a Russian oligarch, who was passing a message from the office of the president of Ukraine to the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. The Financial Times reports that last month, the president of Ukraine did indeed invite Roman Abramovich to Kyiv in an unsuccessful attempt to persuade Vladimir Putin to hold direct peace talks. Zelensky asked Abramovich to pass a message to the Russian president about his willingness to meet in person. And all this information only came to light after Vladimir Putin stated that a certain businessman had delivered him a message from Zelensky, after which Zelensky published an open letter to the Russian dictator. And only after that did Zelensky admit that yes, indeed, he had secretly invited the Russian oligarch Abramovich to Kyiv without the knowledge of Ukrainian society. He came to the president's office and they talked. But another publication, Ukraine Context, reveals even more shocking details. Allegedly, a representative of the president's party, David Arakamia, even spoke on the phone with Vladimir Putin during Abramovich's visit to Kyiv. Let's figure out together what's true and what's just rumors. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. So, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, suggested to the UK authorities to direct the money from Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich received from the sale of the Chelsea Football Club towards strengthening Ukraine's air defense. In an interview with The Guardian, Zelensky said that he discussed this issue with the head of the UK government, Keir Starmer, and here is his quote. "The Prime Minister told me that he is doing everything he can, and I know that our diplomatic teams are discussing this. It's a difficult moment. We're talking about almost £2.5 billion that the British authorities froze after Abramovich sold Chelsea. Abramovich sold Chelsea in order to later use this money for humanitarian aid to Ukraine. According to Zelensky, the money can be used to purchase expensive air defense munitions and protect Ukraine's energy infrastructure from Russian missile strikes." Next, another quote from Zelensky. "This money can help. It's fair between us. Russia started this war. Why not use Russian money?" Zelensky also noted that during the recent war, there was a meeting with Abramovich in Kyiv. He told the Russian billionaire directly, "We need your money." This is where it gets interesting. Such a meeting between Zelensky and Abramovich was not known until the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin talked about it, clearly trying to drive a wedge into Ukrainian society. And only now has Zelensky said that yes, indeed, he did meet with Abramovich in May. And he passed on to the Russian President Putin, through him, a proposal for a ceasefire and bilateral meetings. Zelensky also noted that he is not going to give up Donbas to Russia. As he stated, this was the key message. "I said that we will not leave. We will not give you victory in this way." And here I should note that earlier the Financial Times wrote that last month Zelensky invited Abramovich to Kyiv to deliver a message to Putin. That's right. Ukraine wanted to demonstrate the seriousness of its intentions regarding direct peace talks with the Russians, even though the US, which is seeking to mediate a ceasefire, is distracted by the war in the Middle East. As the publication writes, Kyiv hopes that success in stopping the Russian offensive, which has practically stalled in recent months due to huge losses among Russian troops and damage caused by long-range airstrikes deep into the Russian lines, will give momentum to an immediate ceasefire. And the chronology of this story is as follows. Last Friday, Vladimir Putin stated that on May 21, after a trip to Kyiv, he met with a certain businessman, calling him, quote, "one of the representatives of our business circles." He listened to Abramovich and refused to meet with Zelensky. In the end, Zelensky himself confirmed the Financial Times report, telling Sky News that Abramovich did indeed meet with him in Kyiv, but he presented this story from a slightly different angle. Here is a quote from Zelensky. "He came to me and wanted to tell me that they are ready, that they want to understand what we want to do. I said that it's not about us. You are fighting against us on our territory. And I told him about Donbas. That was the key message. We will not leave and we will not let you win like that. We also talked about possible compromises. I said that a ceasefire is the biggest compromise on our part. And so Zelensky made it clear to Abramovich that he is ready to meet with Putin at any time and in any format, and he asked to pass this on to the Russian dictator. But it's sad that, about negotiations like these, Ukrainians find out either from Putin or from the Western press. I should note that Abramovich has already acted as a mediator in negotiations between Russia and Ukraine since the first weeks of the war in 2022. The oligarch participated in mediating a round of negotiations in Istanbul in March 2022. And also, the Financial Times claims that Abramovich helped broker a deal guaranteeing the export of Ukrainian grain through the Black Sea at the end of the same year. It is also reported that Abramovich is still involved in prisoner exchanges and other bilateral negotiations with Ukraine, including aspects of the stalled peace plan under joint leadership. And as a citizen of Ukraine, I have a question here. Why does Zelensky trust Abramovich so much? And next, I'll give you a quote from the Financial Times. According to Abramovich, the Ukrainian leader, President Zelensky, thinks he can solve all problems with the magic of his personal charisma at a face-to-face meeting of leaders, said a person close to the oligarch. Abramovich calls Zelensky's actions captain's rivalry, by analogy with the comedy show KVN, in which the Ukrainian president appeared before he got into politics. Putin is not interested in this at all, and that doesn't work on Trump either, but Zelensky is completely fixated on it, the source added. Two high-ranking Ukrainian officials described the message sent by Zelensky through Abramovich as similar to the open letter to Putin that he published on the presidential website on Thursday, which provoked an angry reaction from Moscow. One of the officials said that the tone of the message was less hostile than the tone of the public statement. And finally, the publication Ukraine context was even more shocking. It says that the head of the presidential faction Servant of the People in the Verkhovna Rada, David Arakhamia, had a brief phone conversation with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, during a meeting with the Russian oligarch Abramovich. It is noted that after this, Abramovich came to Ukraine for a personal meeting with Zelensky on May 21. And after that very open letter from the president of Ukraine appeared. But, as I already said, this open letter card was clearly played to show the unwashed Russians who is really to blame for Ukrainian drones and missiles flying over Russian cities. Ukraine directly offered Putin peace and negotiations, but he publicly rejected them. In general, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone. To be continued.